the Mayo Experience.
That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. That Mayo Experience. Experience.
Welcome to the Pat Mayo Experience presented by DraftKings 2021 Fantasy Football Rankings. Debate starts and sits for week 2 of the NFL season. You don't care what I have to say in terms of context. You just want a list? Easy stuff. Hit the description. All of the rankings are down there on dknation.com as well if you're looking for that. The Listeners League link for DraftKings this week is 3,000 people. It's already 25% full, so I suggest you reserve your spot right now. The link, the only place you can find it, in the description of this video and podcast. Smash the like button for the episode. Subscribe to Mayo Media Network, and in the comment section, you tell me where you would rank Saquon Barkley at running back this week for the Thursday evening game. Because it's tricky to know what to do with him, especially in a bad matchup against Washington as well. So I'm curious what you guys got to say on the matter. Hope that you had a great week 1. And I do want to let you know about runthesims.com, whether it's the free or premium tools. The free tools right now, if you want to search snaps, market share, air yards, targets, the advanced stats hub is completely free to everyone. Just go to runthesims.com and put in any quandary you want. Play level data is available for free for you up there right now. So I suggest if you're researching, go check that out. You want the premium tools, runthesims.com/Mayo. Get you a discount on the optimizer, the 10,000 simulations of each game that you can customize any way you want, your start sit tools, and your player prop tools, and all of the wagering tools that are up there right now. So runthesims.com/Mayo. You want a DraftKings week 2 early preview? Pete Overzet's got that up on Mayo Media Network right now. And if you want some cash giveaways, you got 1 day left to subscribe to the Pat Mayo Experience audio podcast on Apple Podcasts. Leave a 5-star review, something you enjoy about the show, and your Twitter handle or email address so I can contact you if you are a winner. Do that soon. Do that right away so you can get in the draw. That will be happening early on Wednesday morning. Winners announced on Wednesday's show with Jeff Feinberg and Tim Andercuss. That's another way to get into the draw, too. Subscribe to the Mayo Media newsletter where you can get early access to that show on Tuesday evening. If not, you got to wait till Wednesday morning in order to watch it along with more research for the week. And if you just sub to Mayo Media Network on YouTube, you also are in the draw this week. Enough of that, though. Jake Ciely from theathletic.com, from Bets TV, Monday, Tuesdays, and Wednesdays over there with his show. It's killing it, by the way. I tuned into you and Radcliffe live the other day. It was great. Jake Ciely, by the way. I just said where you were from. I didn't say what your
Thank
name
you.
was.
I appreciate that. Yeah, I'm already tired. We were talking about it before the Pat show. This is what I was about to say. This just tells you where I am mentally already. Like trying to answer all the comments in the waiver column and get to all that stuff. I'm a man of the people, unlike you, Pat. When I answer comments, I know you like to say that, but I'm kidding. I'm tired. I need to go to sleep.
It's a real thing, especially in week 1, because everyone, even if you're just a football fan, everyone gets so jazzed up for week 1. Because I was like, I'm not doing the Sunday show this year, or at least I'm not doing it every week. Lauren is doing it on the channel. That's 11:30 a.m. Eastern time, live on Mayo Media Network, if you want to check that out. And if you're into NFTs, Mondays and Wednesdays at noon Eastern, NFTs live, if you like buying NFTs. People seem to enjoy the show, so you can check that out. I'm still learning. They're going through what everything is and how you can buy it. So if you're ever curious about NFTs, that's the show to tune into. Tower and Sky breaking it all down over there. But I woke up at 5 a.m. with the kids. I was like, all right, I'm going to wake up at 5. I'm going to nap from 8 to 10, and maybe I'll go to the gym. And I woke up at 5 and I was like, is football started yet? This is great. I was all wired up. I ended up doing I think I'm just going to do a video, a short video, with an update on Sunday mornings. But then I ended up recording late with Meanie on Sunday, so I'm doing that Sunday evening show. I do the waiver column. That's also up on DK Nation on Sunday nights. And then Monday, I was I slept into 1. I was just absolutely beat.
I don't get that until Fridays. Well, Friday is my doctor appointment / Barkley to get her nails done or something like that. Nails done, nails clipped. But Fridays are the days that I can actually sleep until 10.
Well, that's not bad. You should definitely take advantage of that. Everyone, if they ever get a chance to sleep in, should take advantage of that. I got the 2 little kids running around, so that's never going to happen for me. People are here for the rankings, though, so if you want projections, runthesims.com/Mayo has them all populated right now. But running back rankings for week 2, not a huge change at the top, Jake. You got Christian McCaffrey, number 1. Alvin Kamara, Dalvin Cook, Nick Chubb. Austin Eckler, he of all the red zone touches and only the 1 touchdown. Aaron Jones, Derek Henry, Najee Harris, I'm just doing my French guy now. Chris Carson and Joe Mixon is the top 10. I do want to let everyone know, too, if you played in the Mayo Media Network props contest, the leaderboard is in the description if you want to go check that out right now. And if you did miss out on joining the contest, you can still get in week 2. Like, you're only going to be max 5. I think 40 of 550 people got 5 of 5 last week, and that was with a freebie on the board. So if you think you're good at props, join the contest. All you have to do is go to prizepicks.com, deposit using code MMN or the link in the description right now, and you play a $7.11 entry, 5 NFL picks from Thursday and or Sunday, no Monday, and you get bonuses. Like, you win 10 extra money on the 7-11, so you win $71 if you get it right. But because you're in this contest, you get another $50 on top of that, $3,000 to first prize. So it's great for states that don't have legalized sports betting because Prize Picks is available in a lot of these places. So if you want to get in, like, it's super cheap to do. You get a deposit match up to $100 anyway. So I recommend you go do it. Jake, I know you missed the week 1 picks. You can get in week 2. You'll be good to go.
I'll definitely be good to go when we get to. Yeah, I was trying to that Sunday morning as I texted you, and then the Trey Sermon news happened, and that just updating the rankings, including the projections, that just all went sideways. I finished at 12:58, so I didn't have any time.
Yeah, so I just put my picks in Saturday night, and just luckily, 2 of my props got scratched with OBJ and Zach Moss. Fortunately, I didn't have them in the contest. So prizepicks.com, code MMN, $7.11 entry for the 7-11 challenge, leaderboard in the description. Got any problems with this top 10? Because I think you're starting all these guys.
That's the conversation we have most weeks. Absolutely. The only thing I'll throw out there for their top 10 for anybody that might be concerned, buy low opportunity. I know we don't talk trades a lot on this, but Najee Harris, the only running back in all of football that was out there for 100% of the snaps. Christian McCaffrey, 89. Christian McCaffrey was usually like 95, and we talk about how ridiculous that is. Najee Harris, 100% never came off the field. Yes, it was a down game. I mean, Pittsburgh just really didn't have a whole lot going outside of Deontay for most of it, even when he got hurt. But yeah, Najee Harris, please go buy low. This is exactly what you want. You want the volume and opportunities, and he's out there for a ton. By the way, Pat, do you want to guess who number 2 was in between Harris and McCaffrey for 94% of the snaps out there?
I feel like I should know this because I actually wrote it, but now I completely forget who it is. Who is it?
It's Darrell Henderson out there, 94% of the snaps. Yeah. Great showing for everybody that might have been concerned about Sony Michel.
Yeah, it's a lot. Do you think a lot of that had to do with week 1, though? Like, do you think we see more of not like a completely balanced attack, but instead of 94%,
oh, of course,
it's like 70-30 as we go forward?
Yes. I was actually going to say, so 75% was Mike Davis, 73.8 was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I think he settles into that range. But the point being, it's not going to be 50-50 being the concern. It was a bad matchup, and he still came out of there with a great game. Was actually top 5 in goal to go and goal line rush opportunities. Just only like 3, but that still puts you inside the top 5 because most running backs don't get but 1 or 2 every single week. So yeah, it's just the usage that makes you feel good. It's not going to be 90%, but the fact that it's going to be 70 plus is you can feel good about Darrell Henderson.
You worried about Derrick Henry at all? Just based on the way that this offense ran without Arthur Smith, they dropped their play action rate from like 33% down to 11%, and it showed.
Yes. It did. And you would think coaches are smarter. Maybe, the situation here is they're installing something different. Don't really know what that was in week 1 outside of the play action because most of the offense looked pretty similar in the usage. I don't know. Maybe it's a little bit more 3 wide, and that's why we saw some Chester Rogers instead of Anthony Ferguson involved, although I still never want the third pass catcher, whether it's a wide receiver or a tight end with the Titans. Julio Jones was quiet. AJ Green, that entire team just fell off in week 1. Like, there's a lot. We talk about week 1 overreactions a lot of times. There's a lot of teams that just didn't get right out of the gate, and it just showed the entire game. They were one of them. Atlanta was another one of them. And, not saying to just write week 1 off altogether, but I think better days. You can't have Derrick Henry, A.J. Brown, and Julio Jones and Tannehill. Let's be honest about how Tannehill's played the past 2 years and come out like that every single week. Because if that happens, if this goes for 2 or 3 more weeks, they're looking for new coaches.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty...
Offensively.
I think that's a pretty good way to put it. Yeah, they'll probably end up making a change at OC if that ends up happening, or at least trying to install some new type of system. But what I saw out of Seattle does sort of concern me. Listen, I'm not sitting Derrick Henry. I'm not trading Derrick Henry for like 50 cents on the dollar, which some people want to do. Like, you drafted Derrick Henry, you're probably going to have to ride this one out at least until he starts going off a little bit. Now, this works one of 2 ways. Henry, obviously skilled enough that any matchup, any sort of situation, he can just break off 80-yard runs. That's what he does. That's why people draft him inside the top 5. But what I saw from Seattle last week was their offense looked new. It looked good for the first. They have all these guys who are awesome independently, and their talent overcomes poor play calling and poor coaching and situational awareness, which is done the past 2 years. But like running guys in motion, moving Lockett to the outside, just giving different looks in this offense, it really seemed to confuse the hell out of Indianapolis. And my worry is that like Tennessee acted like they had never seen an RPO before when they played against Kyler last week. Like it just, they stood there like, oh my God, he can do that? And just, they had no answer for it. Like if Seattle's actually upgraded their offense to something like moderately complicated, I just worry that they're going to be up like 21-0 early and Henry might get run out. That's the only fear that I have. He could still overcome that, obviously. He could have a fucking Josh Jacobs game. It's not the end of the world when it comes down to it. They, you know, 10 carries for 35 yards, but he scores 2 touchdowns, so it's okay. The Mark Ingram game that we saw from the weekend where highly inefficient, not that big of a deal because he scored 2 touchdowns. He scored a touchdown. So I'm not sweating it with him, but I do have concerns.
And so for that point, he is 17th in snap percentage, 62.5. Not surprisingly, pass snaps, 57.5. I will say both of those are still even low from what they were last year. And granted, you know, maybe you want to say whether it was Evans or whoever else is behind them, they were struggling last year to find an option behind them. Still, that's a pretty significant drop off when you're talking about Derrick Henry, who, as we've seen, you get the ball in his hands out on the flat, and all of a sudden you have opportunity for a 60-yard catch anyway because he's Derrick Henry, and oh my God, he's already moving with the ball in his hands. So I will say I'm with you in a slight concern. I'll bring it up. I do in my waiver column every single week, Pat. I do concern levels about the most talked about concerned players, and it's 1 to 5 ducks because DuckTales. I want to include ducks somehow. Ooh. So 1 to 5. If I had to get, thank you. If I had to give Derrick Henry a 1 to 5, it would probably, so 1 is almost 0 concern. I mean, I could give 0 and have 0 concern like Najee Harris. I'd probably give him like a 1.5, not quite 2. So like slightly, just barely concerned, mostly because of what you said. Their defense is so poor that if they keep getting down early, what does this mean for Derrick Henry? And that's my only concern.
And I don't want to overreact too much to week 1, but some of these teams that look bad in week 1 are going to turn out to be fine. But some of these surprise teams that look bad in week 1 are just going to turn out to be terrible. It happens every single year. So hopefully the Titans aren't one of those teams if you have Derrick Henry. But I would expect them to rebound a little bit in Seattle. Maybe not win outright, but at least maybe they will win outright because everyone's now high on Seattle, down on Tennessee. This usually flops in week 2. We've just seen it way too many times. 11 to 20 in the rankings. JT, Jonathan Taylor, number 11. Zeke, I'm going to keep it number 12 right now, and I don't feel great about it, but here we are. I'm giving him a pass on a bad matchup. Maybe that's why he did not look great and they didn't run the ball whatsoever. Gibson's dealing with this shoulder injury, but it looks like he's good to go Thursday. He's number 13. Montgomery, flea market, 14. DeAndre Swift, Miles Sanders, Darrell Henderson, Javonte Williams at Jacksonville, Eli Mitchell at Philadelphia, and Tyson Williams at number 20. So I suppose we should just talk about Mitchell and Tyson Williams right now. I think it was pretty telling. In my waiver column, I felt like just an absolute jamoke watching the Monday Night Football game because I had Latavius Murray as my number 1 pickup, and I'm watching the first quarter of this game. I was like, oh my God, he's just not playing. Now, I did preface it with it being like, hey, Murray might not do much and be involved that much week 1 because he just joined the team. Maybe he doesn't know the playbook. And then all of a sudden we get to the second half of that game and it's all Murray all the time, despite not looking half as good as Tyson Williams. They wanted him out there, and I'm not entirely sure why, but it seems like they are going to use him. This is going to be a split, plus the other split they have to take in consideration with Lamar. I still think that he is the better fantasy play in week 2, but by the time we get to week 4, it could be Latavius Murray.
It could be. And the biggest thing here is Tyson hurt because he took that shot to the helmet and then didn't return after that. It was Latavius Murray for that final drive and overtime. So up until that point, it's very similar to the other Williams. Is Javonte Williams definitively looked better if just watching an NFL game than Melvin Gordon. Tyson Williams definitively looked better than Latavius Murray. There's no question about it. If you can watch football and see that, you would know. And that wasn't talking down to anybody. I'm just saying, I would say that's how easy it is just to watch these games and see the difference between them. But all that being said, is Melvin Gordon had the big run late, so people kind of, might be only saw the box score. We'll see that. But the same situation with Latavius Murray is that, yeah, he's also a veteran. He also is somebody who's experienced enough to, maybe be better in the passing game when it comes to blocking. But Tyson Williams is actually a pretty good pass blocker too, and that's part of the reason.
He also got absolutely blown up, and that was also,
I was gonna say that.
We didn't see. That's when we started seeing more Murray on the field, was when he couldn't pick up the blitz.
That's where I was going to go to as well, is that like part of it was despite you took the words out of my mouth, is despite being that he just got destroyed. And while Latavius has struggled at times in his own right pass, but he doesn't ever really get blown up like that. So I will say maybe we're looking at a 60-40, or maybe even it's 50% Williams, and then the other 50% is Latavius. Maybe they activate Le'Veon Bell, give Trenton Cannon a few passing down opportunities, something like that. I still think Williams, if healthy, is the lead just because he looks so good. But a couple factors coming out of that game just leads to a little bit concerned that maybe we were hoping for 60-65 if Williams just blew the doors off the place, but it's probably looking like 50. But 50 in the Baltimore backfield is still an RB2.
Yeah, that's why he's number 20 in the rankings. I think moving forward, at least until we get more evidence that Murray is going to take more hold of this job and switch it to 60-40 or 65-35, I think that Williams, especially with his receiving game prowess, where they just weren't throwing to Murray and they were throwing to Williams, even in half-point PPR, that will carry him through. Eli Mitchell, I do have one spot ahead. I'm really torn on Eli Mitchell because obviously Trey Sermon is going to be active this week with Raheem Mostert dead for 8 weeks, so I wouldn't trust him. That's my only hesitation, that this is Kyle Shanahan and that whatever's obvious is just clearly not going to happen. Like, oh, hey, Jeff Wilson's back all of a sudden. Oh, JaMychal Hasty, maybe you can have 18 carries. I agree that Eli Mitchell looks the best of all these guys, but there is going to be a rotation. It feels like he's going to have some big weeks because this team runs the ball so well, even in this game where they're 3.5-point favorites at the Eagles, but there's going to be games where he just leaves you holding the bag too and just doesn't do anything. And that's really risky for someone people are spending a lot of fab bucks on right now.
Right. So we'll attack this from a couple different directions here. So one is Elijah Mitchell can be the top option on waivers, whether you're blowing the first in a priority or a lot of your fab, because we know any running back with a half decent skill set is going to be a top 15 running back. Jeff Wilson. I jokingly say that all the time. Jeff Wilson wouldn't be a name in the NFL if not for Kyle Shanahan. That's the upside. What do we know about Kyle Shanahan? It can change week to week. And whether or not the other side of this is whether or not the Sermon thing is true. I mean, Shanahan's also out here trying to tell us that Sherfield's a better talent than Brandon Ayuk. So let's be honest about Shanahan. But what it comes down to is Matt Barrows from The Athletic actually asked Shanahan after the game. He said, the entire preseason, we sat here and watched, I'm paraphrasing, and you used Sermon as the number 2. What happened? And Shanahan's response was, I've never had a running back hierarchy. Well, that's actually the true part about it. It's not even just he's never had a hierarchy, is he could actually have a depth chart of his own, and it could change week to week. So I'm after Elijah Mitchell. I think that's a good spot to have him with some of the ones in front of him. I'd probably risk him over Javonte, even though I just went on that Javonte looked better than Melvin Gordon, but I'd put him, that's one spot. He could easily finish higher than that. This could easily be a game where all of a sudden Sermon's active and leads the backfield. So I will say, if you picked him up on waivers and you don't need running back help, flip him in a trade because people are going nuts in trades for him right now. I wouldn't be surprised if some leagues, inexperienced owners, you could flip him for Ezekiel Elliott after what happened in week 1.
Are you worried about what you said, the ducktail levels on Derrick Henry? What would it be for Zeke? Because there just is a chance. Dallas led all of the teams in week 1. It was actually Tampa and Dallas in passing above expectation. It was a pretty wide margin. I think they threw on 76% of their plays. Tampa Bay threw actually on 78% of their plays, but like in game neutral situations, Dallas just opted to pass more. Now, is that a result of you can't run on Tampa Bay, so why even try? Pretty good strategy, actually. Just continue to pass. That seemed to work for them, at least through the air. But it's not like Zeke looked good either at the same time.
No, but so I'm glad you brought that up because I was going to bring it back to Zeke if you didn't. I gave him 2. I actually have him in there. But the reason I gave him 2 is not so much because of Zeke and not so much because of snaps or Tony Pollard or anything like that. It comes down to Why was Zeke blocking? Because the Cowboys have some concerns about their offensive line, and Zeke is an exceptional. This is go back to college. This is the same thing I and many people were saying. One of the best pass blockers you've seen come out in years at that time, and is still one of the best pass blockers in the NFL. You want to talk about getting flattened? He's flattening defensive linemen. So that's the point of where the 2 comes from, is that a lot of weeks you won't have to worry that much about it. But if you have a team with a high pressure rate, go look at the stats that Pat and I talk about all the time when we talk about defenses for matchups in fantasy. We'll also look at that for this reason. If the Cowboys are facing fronts like the Buccaneers and some other teams like that can get after the quarterback and have high pressure rates, high adjusted sack rates, then you're maybe a little bit more concerned that Zeke might be a high mid RB2 in those weeks. So I'm still buying low, but I do also acknowledge that there's some level of concern here.
I do too. I'm going to give him another week. I think this is a great scoring opportunity. This game, just in general. Chris Raybon's going to be on the DraftKings show this week, and I think it's going to be just play all your Chargers and play Cedric Wilson because he's super cheap along with the Dallas stack, and you'll be good to go. You might not win all the money, but you'll probably win some of the money on DraftKings this week. Play in the Listeners League, by the way. Rest of the rankings, because we're finally going to get to that Saquon.
Oh, by the way, real quick, Pat, because I was going to add this real quick too. I forgot to throw this in there because I was looking it up yesterday. When I was looking at pressure rates, there was 2 teams that didn't allow pressure at all. It was the Saints and the Bucks, but the Cowboys were 3rd at 1.6. Again, a testament to how much they used and needed Zeke in that situation. Even against the Bucks, barely got pressured. So again, I just wanted to double down on that whole Zeke factor.
Yeah, I saw the Saints center just got banged up. He might not play this week.
Oh, did he? Oh, yeah, I saw that yesterday. That was late last night,
Eric,
too.
the real McCoy, suffered a calf strain, could be out until after the week 6 bye. I always worry when teams lose their center, though. I mean, everyone always wants to talk about, pass protection. The left tackle is your best offensive lineman. But if you have a shitty center, then, it's tough to get the audibles in right or line movement in right. He's really the captain of the offensive line. And just losing that stable force is really tough.
Ask the Giants fans how they're feeling after that. Gates, I think he was the center last. I don't even know anymore of the Giants offensive line. I was just still laughing at the image that I saw somebody from a Dolphins account tweet where the Giants offensive linemen are blocking each other. It's real. If you haven't seen it, Pat, they are legitimately, the one got turned around, and I don't know if at the timing of it just might be he was just trying to get him back in the right direction, but they're pushing each other.
I do want to welcome in our new viewers on Game Plus in Canada. We're back on TV, Jake.
Are we?
We are.
Live, or is this recorded?
No, this is recorded.
Oh, I was going to say, so I can't do anything crazy. No,
I've been swearing. I've been swearing this whole time. They got to beat that out.
Do they really?
Yeah, you got to watch the uncut version on Mayo Media Network. On actual TV, they have to beep the swears. I have to, I have to make the editors do some work here, not just give them a show.
I wonder if they're going to have to edit out the fact that I'm leaning over and trying to give Barkley a treat because she's being a pain.
No, bring Barkley onto the show. People love Dougs. You like Dougs?
I know.
Yeah, bring Barkley on. Bring her on.
There we go.
There we go.
There's Barkley.
There's Barkley. Say hi, Barkley.
Well, put me full screen. There we go. There. Say hi, Barkley.
Barkley's a cute dog.
With my Heineke jersey from ODU represented in the background.
Oh, the mighty Monarchs. We'll talk about them in a second.
Yes.
21-30 in the running back rankings. I got Melvin Gordon, number 21, just to play people against Jacksonville. That seems to be something I'm just going to start doing all the time. Myles Gaskin, Jamal Williams, Clyde Edwards, hilarious. Devin Singletary, assuming that Zach Moss is still in the doghouse for the moment. Damian Harris, he's a bit in the doghouse. What are they going to do? Run J.J. Taylor 25 times? No. Mike Davis, I got Saquon at 28, still ahead of Josh Jacobs at 29, and then James Robinson at 30. That might be an overreaction to James Robinson, but there's an awful lot of Carlos Hyde in that game. like we thought.
Well, so go ahead. No, finish your thought.
No, that was it. Just too much Carlos Hyde for my liking.
Oh, okay. So there's a couple in here that I'll go. So I'll go Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I would put higher. Darrell Williams had 1 touch in that game. This is the volume we wanted for Edwards-Helaire. And granted, he's not Josh Jacobs, but if you're giving him Josh Jacobs and Kenyon Drake's touches, I'm much more okay with that than as much as Myles Gaskin in that situation. Just I don't want anything to do with that backfield if possible. And against the Bills. So I would go Edwards-Helaire, even over Melvin Gordon. I don't want the second piece. Even I don't disagree with you at all. Start everybody against Jacksonville, even back. Similar to Detroit. Jacksonville, Detroit, Green Bay, you probably can start 2 running backs against them if it's a situation like that. But I put Edwards-Helaire higher. I would put Damian Harris higher. I know the fumble, but that's zero concern in my mind right now. And then after that, I don't really have much of a problem where I agree with you on James Robinson. We can't ignore it. The fact is he was used more on passing downs. Carlos Hyde was used more on running downs. James Robinson got about half. It was almost a 50-50 split. And whether or not these Urban Meyer going back to college rumors are true, that's the only reason you would hope and hold on to James Robinson and not sell low just yet. But until that happens, this is a gross situation, especially against Denver.
Yeah, I don't love it whatsoever, but I still think that he's the one who's going to generate the most fantasy points. 30th means that he's a low-end flex. You probably have receivers that are better. I just want to push back on Clyde Edwards-Helaire because there's the thing. I know that we want volume. Like Mike Davis got a ton of volume too. Obviously, it's a terrible matchup against the Bucs, but I don't love the rushing matchup against Baltimore. It's especially with Jimmy Smith and Jimmy Smith. We're not talking about the bad guy in season 3 of Dexter here, or President Santos from the West Wing. But without Jimmy Smith and Marcus Peters, like, you can kind of go down the field on Baltimore pretty easily. Like, if the Raiders can do it, I have no qualms that the Chiefs are going to do it. And frankly, just looking at the Chiefs offense, they know what they're doing. Mahomes is either going to run himself, or he's going to throw it to Kelsey, or he's going to throw it to Hill, and they're going to score 40 points. Like, they're a pretty predictable offense in that way, and no one can cover them. Like, they don't really need to use him as much, and I don't think they're going to start leaning on it against Baltimore.
No, but at the same time, as you mentioned, getting down the field, I think that's why. I think involves Clyde Edwards-Helaire out of the backfield, 5 catches on 5 targets for 59 yards for Kenyon Drake. And if you're going to tell me Edwards-Helaire versus Drake, I'm taking Edwards-Helaire every single time. So I don't disagree with you. That's how you attack Baltimore. But I think Edwards-Helaire, just for the passing game upside, I don't think he gets to 17 touches in this game because of the matchup, even though he monopolizes most of that backfield. But I think it's the passing game upside is where I'm going to take it. And again, that's why I just have more confidence than Gaskin for that entire backfield and Melvin Gordon with being the second option. I'm not moving up that high, but he'd be one spot behind Tyson on the other side of the ball for me.
Yeah, I'm going to keep him right at number 24, the lowest of the low, running back number 2s. I just want to see it. Like, we still haven't seen it with him yet. Even last year, we didn't see it with him. Like, maybe he's just not that good.
His finger paintings suck too.
Who else is in here? What are you doing with Barkley?
I don't think that. Like, I had him at 18 last week, and I said I would have made the same choice again because I'm going for that's where I risk it. If Barkley's on my team, like if I had all 30 running backs on my team, I'd risk him. Basically, at the same spot, I'd risk Edwards-Helaire. I would go Edwards-Helaire before Barkley, but I would risk him over Gaskin, and I would risk him over being the second option in the backfield with Williams and Gordon. And I keep emphasizing the word risk, though, because last week is what could potentially happen. The good side of it, he was out there slightly more than Devontae Booker, and that's a good thing. In his first week back, the Giants were clearly honest about what they were saying this entire time, and they were taking it slow. And if you're being honest about Barkley, he didn't look like 100% Barkley. He looked like a pretty good running back, but he didn't look like himself. So there's a lot of risks there, but the fact of the use in the passing game and the upside that he brings, if he is healthy, and it's a short week, so, you talk about Washington's defense, the time to prepare is not the greatest matchup, but I would risk him around that same 18 to 22 spot. And if you don't want to play him, I don't have a problem with it. I don't want to live in a world where I wake up, Friday morning and it's like, oh my God, Barkley scored 18 on my bench.
I know some people can't live with that sort of thing. Like they don't want to have the FOMO of missing out on the big game. But if he scores 18 on your bench or 24 on your bench, at least I know Barkley's good again, and then I'm good moving forward.
Right, but the comparison I bring into like Gaskin is like, what is he scoring in my lineup? 11? Nah. I mean, there's a lot of guys that like 9. That's why. It's how you want to construct your lineup. This is what we talk about a lot with the flex players or wide receivers or stuff like that. Do you want the ceiling of 15 to 20 points with the potential for Barkley? If you want that 9 to 12 guaranteed, just lock it in, you don't have to worry, then bench Barkley.
I have Myles Gaskin at a 50% projection at 12.6 points in full point PPR, a median projection of almost 14. So I just like Gaskin. I know he's a part of that like three-way committee, but Tua not afraid to not throw deep downfield. Maybe that changes with Fuller back, but I just think that Gaskin's going to be a primary part of this passing game too, especially with the Bills pass rush, which isn't bad.
Yeah, so you have him right lock and step with kind of what week 1 was. He was out there for 54% of the snaps. It's what we expected and what you and I talked about before the season started is 50% Gaskin, and then the other half is going to be the other two. It might be Brown 1 week, it might be Achman 1 week, but he gets that half. So again, I feel like he's safe. I don't have him quite as high as you do, but I'm not that far from you. He's the safe play.
Josh Jacobs, I have at number 29. I feel like people are going to have a problem with this because there's like this weird like group of Josh Jacobs truthers. But like,
did you not watch Monday Night Football, Pat?
I watched him have one good run for a touchdown. Granted, he got over half of his yards on one run. That was like 16 yards. Scored a touchdown, then got gifted another touchdown and still scored like 15 points. Like, if he's not scoring 2 touchdowns, especially in this matchup against the Steelers, like in a bad matchup, in a good matchup against a good, like bad run defense, by all means, like top 15 play. In this matchup with no receiving and really tough to score touchdowns on Pittsburgh, no, thank you. Like maybe he'll score 2 touchdowns and save your week, but wouldn't count on it.
No, so I'll have the same answer I asked somebody last night. They said Monday Night Football, I'm down by 15. I have Jacobs and Drake. Who do I go with? Do I go with the Drake sick game or the Jacobs sick game, or do I go with Drake? And I said, basically it comes down to, do you think Jacobs scores a touchdown? And I say that to say that's pretty much most weeks now with Drake in the mix, because this is basically, you know what the Raiders are? They don't want to treat him as such, but the Raiders backfield is the Cardinals backfield. It's the exact same thing. It's one is the goal line, one gets more of the lead carries. The other 50% split down the middle is going to the other guy who's more of the pass catcher. And it's going to be very touchdown reliant for one, very receiving reliant for the other two. And a lot of weeks they'll probably have similar fringe RB2 value, and the person who wins out is going to be the one that scores a touchdown. So do you think he can score a touchdown against the Steelers? If not, that's a fair ranking, and I'm not going to argue too much with it.
Josh Jacobs is essentially the homeless man's Derrick Henry.
I want to go that far.
I would. That's what I'm saying. Like, if Derrick Henry's season goes tits up, then he's Josh Jacobs.
All right. I mean, I don't really have much of a rebuttal for that. I don't think he's that bad, but
no, but I don't think that Josh Jacobs is bad, is the thing. Like, when you were talking about him as a fantasy asset, his availability to a lot of fantasy points is just so limited, especially in tougher matchups, where if he's not scoring touchdowns, it's not like Christian McCaffrey's the highest scoring running back of any running back in week 1, and he didn't score a touchdown. Like, the way that he manufactures fantasy points is essentially the inverse of how Josh Jacobs does things, which is very similar to what Derrick Henry does. Like, if Derrick Henry has a bad game, his bad games are bad. And McCaffrey's bad games aren't bad. You know what I mean?
Okay. I'm not saying you're wrong. It just, as a talent is what the kind of like homeless person, like if you want to say like a lesser version, but like the homeless just makes me think you're just trash. That's why.
No, just Derrick Henry's really good. That, Josh Jacobs isn't quite on his level. But if the Titans just find themselves down in a lot of games this year, and they will not feature him in the passing game to get him the ball in space, like he's going to have some really bad games.
That you are correct on that. Absolutely. No. I would say like the homeless version of Derrick Henry is more like Sony Michel.
Okay, maybe that's more fair. He's like the C- Derrick Henry is Josh Jacobs. 31-40, very quickly. Kareem Hunt, Chase Edmonds, Mark Ingram. Maybe I should have Kareem Hunt higher. It's a nice matchup against Houston. Just don't want to see how that plays out. Chubb looked really good in week 1. Edmonds, Ingram.
I said this, Hunt 25-ish every single week. Just leave him there.
Yeah. Hunt, Edmonds, that awful Mark Ingram, Kenyon Drake, Latavius Murray. I have Fournette, Connors, Tony Jones, A.J. Dillon, and Tony Pollard. Bruce Arians did come out and say that Ronald Jones is starting for the Bucs against the Falcons. I don't really believe anything Bruce Arians says. Just throwing that out there.
No, what I was going to say is the fact that he said that should mean you should put Leonard Fournette up by like ahead of Josh Jacobs, because that's not the fact. Like whatever he said is the opposite of what's going to happen. So maybe he starts and gets the first touch, but it's another Leonard Fournette game. This is why I didn't want anything to do with the Buccaneers backfield. I actually have 0 shares across all of my teams. I don't have Ronald Jones, Leonard Fournette, Giovanni Bernard, and it feels so good. I can't deny the fact, like, yes, FOMO on what Leonard Fournette did in week 1, but to think that it's going to be consistent and not chasing our tails on that, basically just Ronald Jones has another fumble. Maybe we can feel good because now he's just completely kicked out of the equation. But right now, I would go Leonard Fournette a little bit higher, but You like how I tagged you on Mark Ingram, by the way, right?
Yeah, well, Mark Ingram posted the best worst fantasy game of all time. I couldn't believe it.
He was Dirk Nowitzki.
Just looking at it, was like 26 carries, almost 85 yards and a touchdown. How many fantasy points did he score? It's like, oh, not many. Like, that is the best game he's probably going to have all year.
And the thing was, too, is what I tagged you because what I forget, was it 4? Because it was about the goal to go and then inside the 5. So I'm going to pull it up right now because I tagged you. So his goal to goal rush attempts. He was the only one with 4. Jonathan Taylor, Nick Chubb, Henderson, and Eckler had 3 each. Kudos to Eckler getting that work this year. And then goal line inside the 5 rush attempts was Ingram and Henderson at 3 each, and they were the only 2 with 3. So he was in the lead and tied for the lead in goal to go and inside the 5 rush attempts. So he is the guy, but where you have him is certainly 100% fair because it's not like David Johnson's not going to be used in the passing game. He's the passing game option.
No, I think the biggest thing, too, is just how many times are the Texans going to have the ability to run the ball like 50 times in a game. That might be the only time.
How many times are they facing the Jaguars?
Twice. So they have one more time throughout the course of the year. Like if they're trailing in this game, Mark Ingram's not getting 26 carries, and that's the only reason he had any fantasy
100%.
viability. So, no thanks.
100%.
Like he sucks.
I was starting to look at their schedule to see like Browns, Panthers, Bills, Patriots, Colts, Cardinals, Rams, Dolphins, Titans, Jets, maybe Jets, Colts, Seahawks, Jaguars again, Chargers. They might be tied or have a lead in one game the rest of the season.
Yeah, and almost like the Baltimore backfield, you do have to factor in that Tyrod's going to run too. Like he's a part of that rushing attack.
Yeah. That's why we liked him a couple of years ago because he just scored 15 to 18 points every single week.
Yeah. Let's move to wide receivers. Let's go through the top 20 because you're starting all of these guys. Devontae Adams is still number 1. Tyreek, Diggs, Hopkins, CeeDee Lamb at number 5. I think he's going to chew. I just love this game, so I'm just all in on that game. Keenan Allen, Cooper Kupp, Amari Cooper, Justin Jefferson, DK Metcalf. That goes into Calvin Ridley in a bad matchup, but, maybe it'll be more like the first drive from last week than the rest of the drives from last week when he had like 5 targets on the first drive and they didn't throw to him again. A.J. Brown, Allen Robinson. Scoring, Terry McLaurin didn't score last week. He had one of the nicest catches of the year last week, by the way. DJ Moore, Chris Godwin, Adam Thielen, Tyler Lockett, Deebo Samuel, and Jamar Chase. Turns out he's okay. He actually won me a bunch of money on DraftKings. Play in the Listeners League, by the way. That link is down in the description if you missed on the Mayo Media Network. Prize Picks prop contest. You can still get in. You're a week late, but you can still have time to catch up. So go deposit on prizepicks.com right now. Use code MMN. If sports betting is not legal in your state, a great way to get in on the prop action. You come compete with us. Make your entry for $7.11. Full details down in the description. Plus the leaderboard if you already played it to see where you're sitting after week 1. Anyone in that top 20 that you're not starting?
No. You're starting everybody inside of here, which, by the way, is scoring McLaurin. There was 4 players in week 1 that were on the field for 100% of the snaps, wide receivers or tight ends. 2 of them on the same team, Pat. 2 of them being Terry McLaurin and Logan Thomas, who never came off the field for the passing offense. If you're worried about Heineke, I'm not at all. Heineke is actually more aggressive than Fitzpatrick, not throwing the ball, but this is why he gets hurt, is because he's out there giving 100% every single play because he knows who he is and he's trying to win jobs and trying to stay in the NFL. 7-year career for those people calling him a kid during the broadcast last week. He's 28 years old. He's been in the league for 7 years. But Terry McLaurin, Logan Thomas, I have zero concerns about them. I think maybe McKissick comes back into relevancy as in a James White PPR only with Heineke, but I'm not worried about McLaurin. I'm not worried about Logan Thomas. The other 2, just for kicks and giggles, Pat, Darnell Mooney never came off the field, and Tyler Higbee never came off the field.
Good for Higbee. Didn't really do much for old Mooney Tunes.
Oh, I mean, who was the quarterback and what was the matchup?
Yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't a great situation.
Revenge game. Revenge game. Pat, it's revenge game contract year for Andy Dalton, number 1 quarterback this week.
I actually like the Bears this week. I feel like everyone's just off the Bears, and everyone's like, oh, yeah, the Bengals looked really good. They looked like okay. But the Bears' defense wasn't good. Like, they got just exposed deep, but they did a little bit better than I thought they would against the Rams, to be perfectly honest with you. I thought the Rams were going to score like 70.
Yeah, I thought the Rams was it's gonna be potentially a blowout with how things are going, and that offense is looking a hell of fun with Cooper Kupp and being basically Robert Woods having a down game with Matthew Stafford. I put quotes because everybody's worried about Robert Woods now.
Yeah, Bobby Trees will be fine. 21 in the rankings is my guy, Tony Brown. After an excellent, there's going to be one of these guys that's left out every single week, so the ranking is just. You're playing all three of them if you have them at this point. So Antonio Brown, Deontay Johnson, Brendan Cooks, T. Higgins, DJ Chark, Robert Woods, Julio Jones, Mike Evans at 28, Chase Claypool, and prison Mike Williams. Although he didn't actually go to prison, but he's prison Mike. Dallas game. He got fed. He's healthy. Just keep playing guys against Dallas.
And he only fell on his back like once. Maybe he's finally learned you stop just throwing your body into the ground on every catch. Because Mike Williams, to be honest about him, is just stay healthy. We know this about him. This is similar to like Chris Carson, although Chris Carson's been able to stay healthier than Mike Williams has. But another one of those ones where just stay healthy and stay on the field, and we can see what you do. I think Antonio Brown, when you brought up that for going forward, after seeing that game again with how last year finished in December. Now, Mike Evans was still, they were very close in value. Everybody pretends like Mike Evans did nothing in December. He had a lot of good games in December. But I think going forward, the fact of Godwin, Brown, then Evans is the way to rank every single week. Just because if Evans goes off, he's going to go off, but Evans is the one of the three more likely to have that 4-5 point game and kind of get left out of the equation, especially without a touchdown. So I'm okay with your rankings there. It's very similar to the Pittsburgh wide receivers, who I think you have ranked kind of the same way, unless where's Juju?
Deontay Claypool, I have Juju at 42.
You have Juju way down.
I don't like
See, I would
Juju.
do opposite. I would do the same thing.
I just feel like Juju doesn't present any sort of upside like Antonio Brown does in this situation, where the Mike Evans of that team is Chase Claypool, but I'd rather gamble on the upside of Claypool versus sort of like the of Juju.
See, I don't think it's of Juju, honestly, because one of the things with Ben Roethlisberger is Juju's outproduced what would be a normal touchdown stat line with his receptions and yards for most years, especially last year, because he does have Ben's eye when they get into the end zone. Like, I love Deontay because he has Ben's eye the entire game. But when it gets into that red zone and the touchdown opportunities, it's Claypool and Juju. And a lot of times it's Juju more than Claypool. I'm not saying you're wrong to have him higher,
it sounds like that's what you're saying, Jake. You can say it. It's okay. I can take it.
No, I will always go, like, unless it's a specific matchup situation, which I don't feel like this is, especially after you just saw with Las Vegas being vulnerable to some more speed. I would say, for my opinion, it's always going to be Deontay, Juju, then Claypool. Very similar. Claypool and Evans are always going to be the bottom of the three for those situations.
And I will always probably go until like new facts present themselves, because Ben looked like, honest to God, he looked like trash against the Bills. Poor Najee Harris. He was open on like three separate, like, just dump off routes. Ben threw it behind him every single time. And it was like, oh, you're not in the right spot. It's like, why don't you just throw the ball to me, man?
And here's what it comes down to, too. It's just even that last week. So Deontay left with the injury and still had 4 more snaps than Claypool. Claypool's the snap odd man out and 2 wide, and that's what it comes down to. Juju was 51, Deontay 42, despite, like I said, he came out of the game, so the number probably would have been neck and neck with Juju, and Claypool was down at 38. And that's my biggest thing about Claypool, is that he's the guy off the field.
But I'm not too concerned about that. What I'm concerned about is, what's my best game, like, realistically for Juju? Like 7 for 69 and a touchdown? I don't need all the snaps. Like, I just feel like his ceiling is so limited versus like a Mike Evans or even an Antonio Brown, where they're in a better offense. Obviously, we've seen what their upside is. It feels like Ben's more on the decline in this situation. Then I'm going for the big hitter with Claypool. He's like the new Brendan Lloyd. He only makes hard catches. And if they ever do take like shots downfield, it's gonna be to him. So he's gonna get his points in bulk when it comes down to it. So I would rather gamble on his potential ceiling rather than, like I said, the of Juju, who just, I feel like you can do better.
Their ceilings, just to go back to last year, are very similar. And what it comes down to me is Claypool, his ceiling is touchdown reliant. He has to score, because correct me if I'm not going to say everybody out there, correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm not going to make you try to pull it up on the spot, as I would even do the same. But I think Claypool only had 1 or 2 games of 100 yards last year. Like, Claypool has to score. Yeah. And that's what it comes down to for me.
But I do expect him to score far more than Juju, especially, and when his touchdowns come, they're going to be on
more?
Yeah. Like, how many touchdowns did Juju have last year? Like 5?
9,
He had
which is
9
that's what I was saying. It's an
No,
that's what I'm saying.
That's
it's
an
not
oversight on my part. However, this is also year 2 for Claypool. I would expect him to get better. I'm not feeling Juju at all. I don't want to play him. Like, I just don't feel like he's
You're
any
not
good.
feeling the Juju? Was that intentional?
It was not. But just like, I don't want some guy running around the line of scrimmage. I just don't. Like, he's great for a PPR league as your third receiver if you need stability. I want to take some shots with my team in the right situations. And I feel like if the touchdowns are coming for Chase Claypool, they're like 40-yard touchdowns, not 1-yard touchdowns.
Yeah. And for Juju, his touchdowns are 7, 7, 3 when he played the 12 games and 9 last year. And that's what I was saying. It was anomalous, if that's a word. Did I just make that a word? 831 yards and 9 touchdowns. He still has Ben's target when it comes to the touchdowns for whatever reason. I don't disagree with you that if I'm a quarterback, I'm looking at Claypool before I look to Juju, but they just have that connection.
Well, hopefully they just start throwing more to Firemouth, and then they'll be fine.
Firemouth.
When I drafted him in my keeper league. That's just what I yelled out, and Cust was putting everything. He's like, I don't know who that is. I was like, don't worry about it. I'm taking him.
I saw when you messed up the name from the Super Mario RPG yesterday with talking baseball for a change.
Yeah, I didn't know who that was. It was like Weird Al Yankovic was like pitching for the
Yarbrough.
Yarbrough, yeah. There was Yarvich was the Super Mario RPG villain, was a sub boss like halfway through the game. It's still like
I actually knew who you were talking about when you said it too.
That's great. It's one of my favorite games of all time.
It's an amazing game.
Yeah, it's fantastic. It's no Super Mario. I mean, I really stopped playing video games after N64 because I'm old now. But after Super Mario 64, it probably is RPG that's my favorite Mario game. Mario! Not including like Mario Kart or tennis or anything like that.
I was just about to say that. Yeah, not including the other ones. Yeah.
Like adventure style games.
I think I would lean Super Mario World, but yeah, it's close.
I mean, there's just so much hidden adventures you can have in Super Mario World. Rest of them, 31 to 40. Tim Patrick, number 31. I'm digging Tim Patrick this week. Jags, play against the Jags, and Tim Patrick's good. Teddy Bridgewater, also good. This Denver team, kind of good. Although they'll have beaten like the Giants and Jags, and we won't really know until they play someone actually good, but I think they're pretty legit. Tim Patrick, Marv Jones, Corey Davis, Marquise Brown, Robbie Anderson, Sterling Shepard, Cortland Sutton, Devonta Smith, Tyler Boyd, and Jarvis Landry, who, did he score on that like goal line reverse that he got? I don't think he got in, did he? I can't remember now.
I don't think so either, but now you're making me.
No, because Chubb, it was on Chubb's second touchdown. He ended up punching it in. I want to rank Cortland Sutton a lot higher, but I was kind of flummoxed about his usage, even with Judy going out. Like Tim Patrick's just good, and I think he might still be kind of recovering from this knee injury.
So I'm gonna multi-layer this one for you.
You're gonna incept me with it.
Yeah, if you can go to sleep, I'll kind of put all the thoughts and then just sit back as you tell them to me. There you go. Cortland, like this is, and I want to bring this up because this is a long-term situation to exploit over the season for the Giants. Giants secondary, I've brought this up with you in many shows, is a very good secondary. It's an underrated secondary because the misnomer of the Giants just being terrible, which is fine. But that secondary, the one thing about them, Adoree Jackson and James Bradbury, probably a top 10 corner duo. You could even argue top 5. What they are really good at is stopping the Suttons, Galladay, if he wasn't on the Giants. The bigger, not the best separators, although Sutton was a better separator than Galladay. Don't get hung up on that. I'm just saying the bigger guys, because where their one flaw is for the Giants secondary, I'll give you one play and you know what the flaw was. Melvin Gordon ran away from the secondary. They lacked the speed, and that's why Jerry Jeudy was obliterating their defense, because they can't keep up with the quick twitch, good route runners, those type of receivers. They can limit and stop. Like if we're talking the Buccaneers facing the Giants, Antonio Brown all day long, Chris Godwin, good, Mike Evans, be a concern. Situation with the Pittsburgh Steelers. So I say that to say I have zero concerns about Cortland Sutton. I like him a lot this week. And I actually think you have, and I know we're not there, KJ Hamler is too low in my opinion, because the one aspect of beating Jaguars too is you can get behind them as well, as Brandon Cooks did several times.
Well,
I would go Patrick over Hamler.
Hold on. You can just beat the Jags anywhere you want to.
That is true. But I'm just saying that the big playability of KJ Hamler would have him. I would go for that upside over several wide receivers in front of him, including the number 3 of KJ Osborne, another KJ, just because of that upside. I still would go Patrick over Hamler, but I think they might be closer than people assume.
It's funny because now it goes back to like a Juju versus Claypool situation where Hamler's sort of the Claypool of this situation. I just have no faith that he's ever going to catch the ball. I just don't. I feel like I've watched him drop. I feel like I've watched him drop over the past 2 years like 4 wide open 50-yard bombs in the end zone that just hit him in the hands and dropped it.
Yeah, and if he didn't get turned around, look, that wasn't the best placed throw for where he was running. He did get turned around.
Oh, you mean in the middle of his chest, wide open in the end zone? Yeah, it was tough for him.
No, he was moving. If you're on the screen, he was moving away to the left, and he was trying to catch it right here. I'm not saying he should have not caught it. Like, he should. He's an NFL wide receiver. He should have caught it. It still wasn't the best situation for him to try to. And I say that to say, like, if he does catch it, people are going crap bananas or over waivers going after Hamler instead of Patrick, because now what if he gets the same amount of snaps as Patrick? Again, I preface this all with I'm playing Patrick over Hamler. I'm just saying I think that Hamler has more upside for where you have him. And I also wanted to double down on that Courtland Sutton situation where I am buying Courtland Sutton everywhere because the one thing he did, he still looked healthy as he did in the preseason 3 game.
So I have Chenault at 42. Of the Jags receivers, I have them Chark, Marv, and Chenault. Is that the way that you would go with it? Or is Chenault like a frisky matchup for this good Denver defense?
I would still rank this is all these situations we're talking about similar opportunities here, but Chenault snap. I would just have him there. Snap, snap, snaps. That's what it comes down to. This is Marv Jones and Chark are the top 2, and then Chenault can definitely do some damage, but he has to do more of his on fewer opportunities. So you have them all in that range. I liken them a lot to last year's Panthers. I think that's who they are this year. This is going to be this year's Panthers, all in that 25 to 30-ish range on a week-to-week basis. One of them possibly finishes inside the top 15, but it's going to be frustrating to try and figure it out. So they're probably, you know what? The thing is, they're probably your good wide receiver 3 on most of your teams.
Yeah, and they're completely capable. I lied. I have Chenault at 41, not 42. I have Juju at 42. Nelson Aguilar at number 43. I feel like such a dummy for not playing Nelson Aguilar on DraftKings last week or starting him in any lineups. Just like, oh, he's healthy now. They did go out and spend all this money on him. Maybe he's actually like not bad.
A part of it was the matchup too. If I had to choose between the two of them for consistency's sake and who I trust more, I would still trust Jacoby Myers more. But this is another matchup that isn't something that you have to worry about, and you have him back to back.
Yeah, I have him back to back. Just pick your poison. I think the higher upside lies with Aguilar, but you're right. Like Myers feels like a 6 for 60, maybe an 8 for 80, a 6 for 84 type guy almost every single week. He will see more of the targets, but Aguilar feels like he just is going to be the receiver if Mac Jones starts throwing the ball down the field. Now, he didn't really have to against the Dolphins. Maybe they'll let him air it out a little bit against the awful Jets to just build some confidence with some of these downfield throws. I've went over this twice now on the waiver wire, the Sunday night waiver show and then the updated waiver show. I really like Jamison Crowder this week. After seeing how much that Zach Wilson leaned on Braxton Berrios over the middle, with Crowder back, he's just going to be peppered with targets.
Yeah, if he's back, the disappointing thing was Elijah Moore was out there for more opportunities, but just it wasn't connecting. And because of what you're talking about, Zach Wilson under pressure, if they put Elijah Moore in that role more and didn't use Berrios as much as they did, we could get more excited about Elijah Moore. But it looks like, another one of those situations where we want the talent long term, but that's just not the situation we're facing right now. So yes, if Crowder is back, I'm with you, because that was one of the things I was looking at yesterday when I was looking at that pressure rate for Zach Wilson. Is so they were tied for second. Bengals got pressured the most, 16.1. Titans and Jets 14% right behind them, and that's before losing Becton. So no Becton, Zach Wilson under duress. Yeah, I'm with you. Still Corey Davis, fine, but if Jamison Crowder's back, absolutely.
So the teams with the most quarterback hits against them from last week, and you can find all of this on the Run the Sims Advanced Stats Hub. It's completely free to use. Go check it out. Indy, 10 quarterback hits in 41 pass attempts. Atlanta, Detroit, New England, surprisingly enough. The Jets, Tennessee, Buffalo, Carolina, Minnesota, Baltimore, Cincinnati. From 10 down to 7 in terms of quarterback hits against. Now, Minnesota threw the ball 53 times. Buffalo threw it 55 times. So it's a bit of a better ratio than, 9 quarterback hits and 40 pass attempts for the Atlanta Falcons. So I think stuff like that, especially when we talk about defenses. Now, would you attribute some of that to bad offensive line play or good defensive line play, or a mix of both? Like, Wentz getting hit 10 times. Does that mean, I mean, the Rams with a good defensive line should be in that backfield all day, because it's not like the Seahawks we're expected to really be bringing the pressure all season long. We expect the Rams to do that. So when you look at numbers like that and pressure rate, do you attribute that more to an offensive line or a defensive line?
Both, and also the quarterback himself. So when I was looking at pressure percentage, I like that a little bit more because it incorporates under duress, hits, and sacks. So it's all of this. So under duress is included in that, and the fact that they might have to scramble, or they're just not a big mover in the quarterbacks or in the pocket, which Wentz really kind of isn't what he used to be. Part of the reason he got injured that first time is because he was better at that. But it's all those things. So you have to consider, and that's where it comes down to evaluating the situation. You know, we could throw out, and we talk about this conversation a lot, Pat, is why I say it's like a piece of a puzzle. You don't just take broken tackles for running back and say, I know he's good, because it's part of a puzzle. If we throw out pressure rate or times hits or whatever it might be, you just be like, oh, they stink. They're just getting hit all the time. But plays, as you mentioned, who they faced, the quarterback himself, you have to take all those things into account. So the Bengals being at the top in pressure rate and one of the top in quarterback hits, it tells you, we knew that the Bengals offensive line stinks. And on top of that, though, is also like Burrow is still a little hesitant back there. So these are all the things you have to take into account. I would be mildly concerned about the Colts. I am more concerned about the Jets situation because of the offensive line was part of it. The pressure was coming from the defense. The Bengals obviously have a concern as well, especially because they leaned on Joe Mixon more and didn't let Joe Burrow throw the ball 40 times, probably because of that. The interesting one is the Titans, and you brought them up earlier into the show, is because when they're in that ranking, is it the offensive play calling that they decided to change and go away from the play action? Because the play action too gives you that beat of a second, which the quarterback has a little bit more time in the pocket. So those you gotta include all those. Like, put it this way, Pat. The Seahawks are number 4 at pressure percentage with factoring all those in. Are we really worried about Russell Wilson? No, because you also understand the situation.
I like it. So context matters, as it turns out, not just raw stats. I'm going to write that one down for me.
What a surprise.
I'm going to discuss that on the internet with people, and people will be triggered about it on both sides. Because that's what people do. All right, so I have this like little, I think Marquez Callaway rebounds this week after like no one will want to play him on DraftKings. He's only 4,200 again against Carolina. I think he'll be fine. Like, as an upside play. He's number 49 in the rankings. So now we have Odell at 50, Fuller at 51, Kenny G at 52, Darnell Mooney Tunes at 53, and then Cedric Wilson, Brian Edwards, KJ Osborne, Michael Pittman, Rondell Moore, Hunter Renfrow, Brandon Ayuk. There's no way you can... Listen, Brandon Ayuk might be fine this week and play a full complement of snaps. There's no way he was going to find his way into my lineups.
No, and I don't think you can, because one is, again, I said it earlier, I don't trust Shanahan in this. There's not a world where Ayuk is a lesser talent than Trent Sherfield. But what might be true is that he's just not 100%, and it's similar to the Giants situation, is maybe that's what it is, and he's just not wanting to spell that or go through that situation, or maybe he's trying to light a fire under Ayuk and get him some motivation to really push back to get back to 100% quickly. But until we see Ayuk, at least, even if he's not 100%, but like you said, that full complement of snaps is back, you kind of have to wait and see it first, because Shanahan, if one thing, he will just do whatever the hell he wants, and it works because it's worked for Shanahan so far, not necessarily in the win department, but it works from his players. And right now, yeah, there's no way you can put Ayuk out there until we see it.
Besides Hamler, is there
by the way, I'm buying the hell out of Michael Pittman after this week, because he's facing Ramsey.
I don't think that Carson Wentz can throw to receivers. I think that Carson Wentz is absolute dust.
Except for Zach Pascal of ODU.
Yeah, that's great. When he can get 2 passes from 8 yards out. Yeah, maybe that can work out for him. If Zach Pascal was like Josh Jacobs. Like, he doesn't catch 2 touchdowns. He's useless.
But like, look, Pascal is, but he's a better number 2 than people want to give him credit. Like, I wouldn't put him number 2 on a lot of teams, but he's a better number 2. He did the same thing last year. Towards the end of the year, he was remarkably consistent towards the end of the year. Actually, the last couple games, it wasn't just touchdowns, although he did score 4. He was getting targets and receptions every single week. Where I'm going to say, I want to go back to Wentz. Wentz wasn't even supposed to be ready for week 1. I still put out a little bit of like, Wentz isn't 100%. He wasn't even supposed to play week 1.
In fairness, he hasn't been good since 2018.
100%. Hey, remember when Carson Wentz was supposed to be the next great Hall of Fame top 5 quarterback?
Yeah, I do. And a lot of it had to do, and you mentioned it earlier, was his ability to shake off tackles in the pocket. It was Ben Roethlisberger-esque, and he just can't do that anymore.
No, he can't do that anymore. That's, yeah.
And I don't
100%.
think that's even like when his foot gets healthy. Like that's not something he had the ability to do last year either. So I think injuries have just kind of caught up to him. Like he's just mediocre at this point.
Hey, so we're not doing Sammy Watkins and the revenge game narrative down at 64?
Listen, you can make a case for anyone else you want. You can check out my rankings down in the description and up on DKNation.com. I have them in order.
I will say what's interesting, again, I'm not going this far unless I'm desperate, but there are plenty of people who watch you and me and are in deeper leagues. You have Cephas back-to-back. If there is no Tyrell, I think that Cephas has the highest upside despite the fact he was, fourth in wide receiver, maybe third in wide receiver snaps out of that week one, but
Man,
the upside of him.
How bad is my team if I'm playing Quintez Cephas?
How many people still play in 14, 16, 18 team leagues?
Few?
It just might be a force of the
Very-
situation. No.
Very few. Yes,
No.
most people. We're talking about the majority of people that are watching the show. Maybe you can put this down in the description on the YouTube channel. Tell me how many teams are in your league. I want to know how many 18 teamers are there. I
you
don't
do a
even play in
poll?
I don't even play in an 18 team league. Like that just doesn't sound like fun.
No, I don't either because it's not fun. No, because one injury sidelines your entire season. You want to add injury or just not even injury. You just want to add more risk than playing 18 and 20 team leagues. I was just thinking about it because Brad Evans for the final week of the season was tweeting out his 20 team roster with Andy Behrens, and I'm like, you guys are insane.
Yeah, it's a real boomer move. Boomer Brad Evans, my guy, Brad Evans. Boomer Brad and Boomer Andy playing in
Boomer
18 team leagues. Let's talk tight ends. This is pretty easy. Kelsey, Waller, Kittle, the Hawk. Higbee. No, Andrews Higbee. Rob Gronkowski, Logan Thomas, Noah Fant, Kyle Pitts, Dallas Goedert. I think those are your 11. You got one of those 11? You're good at tight end. Is Ertz going to play, do you think?
Sounds like it, but I mean, we would move Dallas. I think that's the easy answer. You move Goddard up if not.
Yeah, I agree. Like this, do I have Ertz in? I didn't even rank Ertz because he reeks, but this is assuming that Ertz is playing whatever the hell he plays. But if he doesn't play, I would.
I put Goddard at 7.
Yeah, I'd put him a spot. Yeah, I'd put him a spot ahead of Gronkowski. I completely agree with you on that. But I think those are the 11 tight ends right now that you can feel. Not that they're all going to be good, but you can feel like okay about playing them.
You can feel okay. Yeah, and I'm glad you left up Tanyan. And Tanyan, I'm not worried about the Packers at all. Aaron Jones, Aaron Rodgers, Devontae, none of them, except if you wanted a wide receiver after Adams. That's just insane. But Robert Tanyan, we knew it was going to be touchdown or bust. But, hey, facing the Lions could be his touchdown week.
Yeah, I have him at number 12.
I wouldn't feel good about him, though.
No, he's sort of like the cutoff guy, but I think he has the highest upside of those non-11 guys. Like, if he has a good game, he could be tight end 3 for the week. So that's why he's at number 12. I got Jonnu, Schultz. I was going to say Schwartz, but he's on Cleveland. Schultz, Cole Kmet, Gerald Everett, Tyler Conklin, Pharaoh Brown. Pharaoh Brown might be sneaky on this Houston team. As like the athletic tight end that Tyrod can just have as a safety blanket. And he can, I always thought that Pharaoh Brown, because I kept getting confused with Pharaoh Cooper. I was like, how many guys could have the possibility of the first name Pharaoh? And I was like, isn't he like a super speed kick returner guy? I was like, oh no, that's a different guy. Okay. Austin Hooper, Evan Ingram might play on Thursday night. Don't play him. Gesicki, don't play him. Like everyone wants to play like Jawan Johnson now. Like I think I'd rather have Troutman than Juwan Johnson moving forward. Like, you want to talk about guys playing snaps? Troutman played a ton of snaps. How about you just don't want either of them? That's probably the best answer.
Yeah, Juwan Johnson played 12. People asked me about that in the waiver column. I was like, look, I was the person on Friday who tweeted out, go pick up little Jordan Humphrey and Juwan Johnson in deeper leagues just in case. Humphrey didn't hit at all. It was actually Deontay Harrison. Still not interested in Deontay Harris. Actually, of the wide receivers, I think you could take 2 of them and you still didn't total Callaway's snaps. Like nobody else had even 30 snaps of the wide receivers. But to bring it up at the tight end position, Juwan Johnson at the tight end position was 3rd. He was 12 snaps. It was fun. Okay, cool. Like you called that. No, I didn't really because I expected Juwan Johnson to get more than 12 snaps. So I did and I didn't. I'm with you in the fact that Troutman was also running routes, which was part of the concern from preseason was that he was being asked to block so much. So if he's going to be seeing 50 plus snaps and running some routes, long-term Troutman, absolutely. The one that you have way low, and again, I'm not getting excited for it, but I would be more excited than Johnson is O'Shaughnessy. 50 snaps, and the Jacksonville Jaguars are going to be throwing. Not a great matchup against Denver, kind of maybe next week down the road, but similar to your conversation about Pharaoh Brown, who I thought might be Akins, but a similar situation. If you're going to be on the field that much, and the team's going to be passing as much as we expect them to be, and you expect the Jaguars to be passing more than the Texans, I think O'Shaughnessy being just a name to plug in the back of your mind.
Well, you never really have to sell me on the Irish assassin James O'Shaughnessy, but I've been down this road with the Irish assassin a few times. Like, I'm just not going to play him. Pharaoh Brown, like I might play on DraftKings. Put it that way.
I'll put it. Look, I'd play O'Shaughnessy if a player played Ferkser. Again, I don't want the third option. And Ferkser was down. They were down 2+ wide receivers, and that's why Chester Rogers was on the field. And you still couldn't get Ferkser involved. I don't want the third option there. And I'm glad you have Gesicki as low as you do, because that was his one that was his one remaining opportunity with no Will Fuller. But it came down to the preseason conversation you and I had about Gesicki, is that with Waddle now in the mix, he can't play at the slot and he can't get those opportunities. And he was losing a hell of a lot of snaps to Smythe. I don't know if that was maybe Gesicki wasn't 100%, or this is a new thing, or he was in the doghouse for some reason, but didn't Smythe have more snaps than Gesicki, if I'm remembering correctly?
Yes, slightly more, but they were almost about even. Basically, Gesicki had his one shot, and he got mom spaghettied, and that's going to be the end of him. He'll have 4 good games this year. He'll catch 2 touchdowns. He'll be like, man, I should play Sticky Gesicki. And like, no, you shouldn't. You shouldn't own that guy. Just cut him right now.
I love the Eminem reference, because as soon as you said one shot, that popped into my head. So we were on the same page on that one.
There we go. We're old, Jake. This is how it works. I saw 8 Mile in high school. So,
oh my God, we are old.
Yeah. Quarterbacks. We'll try to make it easy for you. There's like a collection like tight end and every other position of guys that you're just going to play. I got Kyler at number 1. I was not impressed at all with the Vikings defense. It was like legit bad. Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, Dak, Russell Wilson, Justin Ebel, Tom Brady, Matthew Stafford against Indy, whose defense also sucks, and maybe they'll get a little bit healthier this week, but it wasn't looking good. Jalen Hurts against San Francisco. That's just respect for the San Francisco defense, by the way. And I'm going to go back to Rodgers. I'm going back to Rodgers at number 11 against Detroit. It's a bad week. What are you, writing off Aaron Rodgers? Give me a break.
And they have, oh crap, the name just went out of my mind. Their first round pick corner that the Lions just lost. The hell's his name? Oh,
Odukin?
Took him to, like... yeah, Jeff Okudah. Yeah, they just took. I was gonna say, just took him like 2 years ago. So yeah, they're down him as well. So, honestly, Aaron Rodgers could finish top 5. I'm not saying to rank him there, but he could finish top 5 and bounce back in that big of a game against Detroit. If nothing else, only because they might just be able to have Aaron Jones have a giant game too, and Aaron Rodgers only has to throw for 260 and 2 touchdowns.
So I think this becomes a more apt conversation for those 12 and 14 team leaguers right now that might be streaming quarterbacks, or your quarterback has a bad matchup. You got any of those guys? Play those guys. After that, I got Jameis, who I've heard is famous, at number 12. I think that he might have to pass a few more times, because I'm not buying 180 yards and 5 touchdowns every week from old Jameis. But the rushing was back, by the way. That was one of our favorite over-unders of the week, was over 8.5 rushing yards, which he beat on the 3rd play of the game. And I think he ended up with like 30-something on the ground, and you really didn't have to throw all that much. Plus, Sean Payton calling an aggressive offense. I like it. Tannehill, it's an interesting spot. It's another wait-and-see week for him, but if he has another bad game, and they're not doing anything different on offense, you have to drop him down. Burrow at 14 against Chicago. Baker against Houston. Tyrod, revenge situation, but just as a guy who runs is probably more important, at number 16. Teddy B at number 17. Mac Jones, Sam Darnold, Kirk Cousins. And I got Lawrence, Heineke, Big Ben. Then you got some bad matchups. Goff, Garoppolo, Matt Ryan, Tua, Daniel Jones, Derek Carr, Wentz, Zach Wilson, Andy Dalton. With Dalton and Garoppolo, it's clear that Fields and Lance are going to come in and hamburgle their touchdowns. So that's not good news.
I know. We freaking Taysom Hill, the NFL. There's Steve Spurrier out here with all these situations. Multiple. We even had Marcus Mariota with that run to start at the early of the game last night. Can we stop with this? How about we just turn to Fields and Lance? Can we just do that? Stop screwing around with this?
That'd be nice.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem. Is I was looking down this list and I was like, there's some buy low quarterbacks in here, but then I was looking at it, but they have bad matchups again this week.
Yeah,
Kirk Cousins.
Yeah, and I don't know if Kirk Cousins' matchup is really bad, but I'm kind of...
Arizona defense just proved they're underrated.
I don't know if they're underrated, but I think their pass rush is obviously, just with Chandler Jones alone, is severely underrated. And the Vikings couldn't block the Bengals last week. That's not good.
Right. Right. Well, and that's the second aspect of it. There you go. This the pass rush versus the offensive lines, to go back to that conversation. But yeah, so you're bringing things full circle over here, Pat. That's great. Teddy Bridgewater, I like, that's kind of like a fun conversation, is like, if you need that fill in, he's probably still out there in the vast majority of waivers. If you don't, hey, by the way, sit for Matt Ryan, that you have all the way down to 26 going against Tampa Bay. Absolutely. If you're in one of those situations, Teddy is a great option, as he just was last year. The only concern you had with Teddy Bridgewater last year is he just wasn't throwing touchdowns.
So I, too, enjoy the upside of Teddy Bridgewater in this matchup. The problem is going to be with the Jags, unless they give up like 40 points a game, is that where is it going to come from? Because with Teddy Bridgewater being so efficient that the running game should look pretty good, I have Javonte and Melvin Gordon ranked pretty highly for a reason, that some of those points have to come from somewhere. Now, you can overload with the Denver passing game, and that will severely benefit Teddy Bridgewater, but someone like Tyrod against the Browns, like, they're probably going to be down in that game. They're probably going to be passing. He's probably going. I think that the floor for Tyrod is higher and the upside is higher for Teddy Bridgewater. Like, if you had to choose between those two guys.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way of putting it.
All right. Defenses. Let's close this up. The one thing that we do well, Jake, or at least that I do well, you do everything well. Defenses is where I am at for this. Here we go. The Patriots, number 1 against Zach Wilson, or Zoomer Zach, as many people are calling him these days. Broncos, Steelers, Saints, Bucks, Washington, Rams, Niners, Cardinals, Packers. Into the Browns, Bengals against Chicago, sorry. The Seahawks, Bears against Cincinnati, Vikings, and Bills.
The only one I would do is I would completely flip the Saints in Washington. I would have Washington at 4 and Saints at 6. But
I watched
kind of nitpicky, and
because I watched a lot of the Jets game, because Tim Andercust was sitting next to me, like, being triggered the entire time when, like, the whole world's against, like, man, the Jets aren't good. Like, you got to deal with this. He was like, he almost started to cry when their punter got hurt. He fist pumped at one point, and he fist pumped too hard and hurt his arm. The Jets, and Carolina for that matter, like, Carolina couldn't really block at the same time. Like, Darnold had some pressure in his face a lot of the time, and it forced him to make some, like, really terrible decisions. Maybe because he's Sam Darnold and he sucks, but at the same time, like, I wasn't blown away by Carolina's offensive line. And we're still dealing with Darnold here at the same time. Like, he can make some mistakes. I know that Danny Thumbs might just put the ball on the ground 800 times, but it does seem that does seem like a slower paced game. Like, the Saints look like they can score, thus forcing the Panthers to play catch up. I think you're just going to get more volume against with the Saints than you're going to get with Washington. Now, maybe Washington on defense is going to be more efficient. And again, this is very nitpicky, 4 versus 6. But
right.
The Saints are bringing pressure. I think they're going to get into the backfield. I just think they're going to have more pass attempts to go against, where I think that Washington wins, but I'm not convinced about that. That game feels like a really close game to me.
Okay, and that's certainly fair. I'm going to the fact that the Giants' offensive line can't stop anybody, and that similar to...
Hey, you said they could block each other. That's not bad.
And that's not bad, but I was going to say similar to the Cowboys situation is that Barkley was in there to chip a lot of time. Devontae Booker, too. They were using them to chip and try to get some extra time for Daniel Jones, who still couldn't avoid getting sacked and still couldn't avoid throwing terrible throws. That's really what it comes down to Washington. I pulled it up, and this is one of the ones where you can get that feel. And again, there's not a huge difference here because it's 4.8% for the Giants to 2.8% for the Panthers. That was their pressure rate percentage. So Panthers weren't under duress as much as the numbers tell, but I agree because I saw a lot of that game too, because I had a lot of guys that I was just interested in watching in that game. It did feel like the number should have been higher than 2.8. So this is some of the ones where we sit here and we go through our own evaluation of why you don't only trust numbers and why you don't only trust your eyes, because if you're only doing one or the other, you're cutting out half the information.
Yeah, I'm shocked it's really that low. Maybe like what qualifies as pressures at the same time. Like, there was just a lot of hands up, and Darnold got rattled by it and just made some really bad throws.
Sure.
So, listen, I've made a lot of money streaming against Sam Darnold, put it that way.
And I don't blame you without that, but I think I would make more money going against Daniel Jones. That's all I'm going with.
Both are very good options. Of the ones that you can pick up off the waiver wire, like, it's weird because like the Steelers are kind of available right now because they were playing the Bills and no one wanted to play them right away. Who else would be on there? The Saints might be somewhat available because no one wanted to like play them against the Packers. No one wants to carry two defenses. Other than that, like the Cardinals will be the hottest pickup. It's another good matchup for them. I like that a lot. But the Bengals against Chicago and Chicago against the Bengals, like those offensive lines are a travesty. Just hope to get lucky.
I'm with you on more so. Ooh. Yeah, the Bears are still. I go Bears. I go Bears before I go Bengals.
I was impressed by the Bengals pass rush last week.
I will say this, watching a lot of that game, because I have a friend who's a Vikings fan, if the Bengals offensive line and defense combined don't have the most complicated letters, spellings, weird last names of any team, like it's a spelling bee of players, it's crazy.
All right. I think that will do it on the Pat Mayo Experience. Just popped up on my Twitter timeline. Antonio Gibson and his shoulder are practicing in full today, so we should be good to go with Tony Gibson. So if you got him, don't worry about him. Just hope that he has a good game. But his health probably shouldn't be that big of a concern. Jake, theathletic.com, Bets TV, what else you got going on this week?
Yeah, so waivers for everybody are always out. Midnight Monday, ranks midnight Tuesday, matchup APA, adjusted points allowed Wednesday, and as you mentioned, the best TV Monday through Wednesdays as well. And I sleep in for a little bit on Fridays.
That's nice. I appreciate that. I think you should get some more sleep. That would be really nice for you. For me, you can obviously get in the cash giveaway because I got $1,000 to give away. You should go do that right now. Everything is down in the description. You got the Listeners League link. You have the props contest, which you can still get into, prizepicks.com, code MMN. You get a $100 match and just enter a $7.11 entry that qualifies you to be in the contest. You can find the leaderboard down in the description. Rate and review the podcast, sub to the channel, runthesims.com. I think that's going to do it for me. Until Wednesday on the Spread Pick Show, I'll see you next time.
Mayo Experience! Experience!